people think that athletes speaking out publicly against social injustice and political tyranny started in 2016, when Colin Kaepernick first took a knee during the national anthem. But the last 100 years of American history is filled with famous sports figures taking unpopular stands against un-American practices. Most of those sports figures were black because most of the heinous actions were perpetrated against them. The swift punishment for speaking out wasn't just the outraged backlash from fans, politicians, team owners, and even some fellow athletes. It was usually also the loss of a career. One of the most outspoken, unrepentant, beloved, belligerent, admired, and reviled athletes in American history was Muhammad Ali. Although he had been the heavyweight boxing champion of the world since defeating Sonny Liston in 1964, he refused to play the role of good Negro that white America demanded from its prominent black athletes and entertainers at that time. They expected lots of humble smiles, fawning gratitude, and disapproving headshakes aimed at the uppity Negroes who cried out for equality. Instead, Ali riled up white America by writing humiliating poems about his opponents and arrogantly predicting in which round he would knock them out.
15 times I have told the clown what round he's going down, and this chump ain't no different.
Worse, he converted to Islam and abandoned his white name, Cassius Clay. He was the poster boy for uppity. In 1967, with the Vietnam War raging and more of our young men being drafted, Ali refused to be inducted into the armed forces. Ali was immediately convicted of draft evasion, sentenced to 5 years in prison, fined $10,000, and banned from boxing for 3 years. Although he remained out of prison while appealing his case, the ban alone cost him millions of dollars. While whites debated, the black community was concerned about whether this Ali controversy was good for African Americans, especially considering the year of his conviction was the long, hot summer of 1967, in which 160 violent riots took place across America protesting racial inequality. In 1967, I was a sophomore at UCLA and already famous, yet I felt disconnected from my fame because I didn't know what to do with it. At that point, I had a lot of political opinions, but now I had a national platform. But I didn't want to just ramble on about injustice, or I wouldn't be taken seriously. I would be dismissed as just another whining college kid. Fortunately, that changed in May, when football great Jim Brown, who is now a Hollywood actor, invited me to join a group of black athletes and activists in Cleveland to discuss Muhammad Ali's refusal to be drafted. At 20, I would be the youngest person in what would become known as the Cleveland Summit. The meeting was to determine whether or not we would publicly support Ali in his refusal to be drafted. This was by no means a rubber stamp committee. Several of the participants had been in the military. Brown himself had belonged to the Army ROTC and graduated from Syracuse University as a second lieutenant. Attorney Carl Stokes, who in a few months would become the mayor of Detroit, making him the first black mayor of a major U.S. city, had served in World War II. The summit was not even supposed to happen. It had started as a simple phone call to Jim Brown from Ali's manager, Herbert Muhammad. He wanted Brown to help convince Ali to drop his refusal to be drafted to avoid the severe loss of income that could financially wipe Ali out. Not to mention the public outcry. Mr. Herbert Muhammad was torn between his religious convictions, which were the same as Ali's, and his desire to protect his friend from ruin. Ali was only 25, so 2 years in the Army wouldn't drastically affect his boxing career. Plus, the government assured him that Ali wouldn't see combat. To Mr. Muhammad, Brown seemed like a good choice to convince Ali because he had been an outspoken activist for years, so Ali would listen. But Jim Brown also was partners in the company that promoted Ali's fights, so he had a financial stake in having Ali fighting. But Brown took his role seriously. He invited me and the rest of the summit members to sit as a jury in assessing Ali's sincerity and commitment. Every athlete responded by immediately agreeing to come at his own expense. I was excited to finally be part of the political movement in a more direct and active way. I also wanted to help Ali if I could, because he made me feel proud to be African American.
My intention is to box to win a clean fight. But in war, the intention is to kill, and continue killing innocent people.
On June 4th, 1967, 16 days before Ali would be convicted, we gathered in the offices of the Negro Industrial Economic Union. Despite our admiration for Ali, we grilled him for hours. Many in the group had come with their minds already made up to persuade Ali to accept his military service. The discussions became pretty heated as questions and answers were fired back and forth. Pretty soon, though, we all realized Ali was not going to change his mind. For 2 hours, he lectured us on Islam and black pride and his religious conviction that the Vietnam War was wrong. We were all well aware that in the early days of the Vietnam War, kids who could afford to go to college were exempted from the draft, which left poor kids, many of them black, forced to do the actual fighting. Ali argued that it was a war against people of color, fought by people of color for a country who denied them their basic civil rights. In the end, he convinced us, and we decided to support him. Bill Russell summed it up for all of us. I envy Muhammad Ali. He has something I have never been able to attain, and something very few people possess. He has absolute and sincere faith. I'm not worried about Muhammad Ali. He is better equipped than anyone I know to withstand the trials in store for him. What I'm worried about is the rest of us. We did our best at that Cleveland summit to support Ali's legal fight and to publicize the injustice of the draft, but we knew how powerless we were against those promoting the war for their own political and financial gain. Nevertheless, I was thrilled that I was finally doing something important rather than just complaining. That feeling of wanting to be a part of a movement to ensure justice and opportunities for all Americans hasn't left me since. Being at that summit and hearing Ali's articulate defense of his moral beliefs and his willingness to suffer for them reinvigorated my commitment to become even more politically involved. It is the road less traveled, but it has made all the difference.